Hello everyone and welcome back to the next lesson of our Java course. So in previous lesson we discussed about the conditional logic, how the conditional logics are used in your programming language. In this one I'm going to focus on one of the very uh, critical conditional logic, which is the if conditions in Java. So the if conditions are a very simple but yet a very powerful tool we as a programmer, where we can build our programs based upon the certain decisions, like how the program should behave if it meets certain conditions, right? Okay. uh, so if I have to put it into maybe a more simplest way, or let's say the if statement is the simplest form of our decision making in Java. It allows we as a programmer to execute a block of the code only if the specific condition is met, and I'm gonna discuss about that. Or think of if statement as a door that only opens under a specific condition. So if you meet the criteria, then the door will open, otherwise you have to pass through. So it says if, and then I have this condition, okay, and then I have these curly braces. Here is your code logic, and then there is a rest of the program. All right. So this is on a high level is the syntax for your if statement. Now there are a few important things, right? Number one is your condition. So for if, you see there is a block, and within that block there is a condition. So the condition is a test that evaluates either to true or false. So these conditions, right, it is either true or false. So whatever condition you are writing inside your if block, right, so inside this one, whatever you are writing, this should evaluate to a boolean value. It cannot be something else, because this is simple if condition. Now the other part is, once this condition, let's say true, so anything which is written inside here will be executed. So your code logic will be executed, and if the condition is false, nothing will be gonna be executed, but the your program control directly be here only. Okay, so it's very simple, but as I said earlier, you're gonna use it a lot in your programming, and all our conditional logics at some point or other you're gonna use some variations of the conditional logics. Okay, now let's do one thing. Let's go back to our editor. All right, so we are back to our editor. So let's take a very simple example where I have an integer value and I want to run a certain section of my code only if it is a, let's say, a positive number. Okay, so let's say I have a int, and let's say I'm gonna call it as a number and value keep it 10, and I will say if number is greater than 0, okay, say okay, otherwise do nothing. Now in this case, if you look into it, right, number is 10, which is definitely greater than 0, so this statement should be printed. If I run my code, you see this program is run, right? If I change this value, let's say to -1, now the condition, this is our condition, right? This is nothing but, we talked about if and then condition, right? So condition will be either true or false. Now it says number is greater than 0, so number is basically, if I evaluate this, it says if, what is my number? Number is -1 is greater than 0? No, right? So if I run this program, nothing is gonna print, because now this condition is evaluated as a false one, right? Okay, so this is one sort of a thing. Now you can also combine multiple conditions in your if logic, and this is a very common scenario. Okay, let's take one example. I'm going to change it again. Let's say I have another number. Let's say I have an age. Okay, 18. Let's put the age as 18. Let's say we have a condition which says if you are 18 or above 18 years, or if you are less than 65 years, you can vote for or you can work. Let's take this example, simple example, right? So in order to combine this one, you say if age is greater than equal to, or I will say greater than 18, and age is less than 65, okay, I will say you can work. Okay, now if you run this one, it's not gonna print anything. Okay, the reason is because now we are using a AND condition, right? We talked about the relation operators. If I change it to OR, it's gonna print you can work, right? Now the point I am trying to make here is that you can combine multiple conditions within your if logic, right? All you have to make sure that each condition should be evaluated as true. For example, if I say if the condition is not being translated as true or false or as a Boolean value, it's not gonna work. Now this was a simple example, but in real life that's not the case. What happens, let's say if you have a multiple option, let's say you are entering into a building, right? You know if the door is open, or let's say if you have the key, you open the door. Within that building there might be 4 or 5 different doors. Now you have another condition within that, so you enter the building, that is condition number 1. Now within the building there might be 4 and 5 different doors. Based upon a certain condition, you will go to either door number 1 or door number 2 or door number 3 and so on and so forth, right? So how you will do that? So well, you can use the nested if statement in that case, right? Let's take a simple example that 50 is the minimum passing mark for your exam. If you get 50, you are passed. But let's say if you get more than 75, you are basically getting a distinction for that one. All right, so I'm gonna say this one as mark. Okay, I will say 50 for example for now. Now I'm gonna build a nested condition for that one. I will say if marks, I think we should say marks, right? Marks is greater than 49. You passed, right? Now but I want to basically make sure if you are more than, you're getting more than 75, you are getting a distinction. So within that what I can do is I can say greater than 74. All right, now if you run this program, it will say you are passed. Now let's increase the percentage to marks as to 80. Now both the conditions are evaluated as true, right? There is another way of doing it. For example, you can also say greater than equal to. I'm going to talk about these operators in our next lesson. Till then, stay tuned. All right. All right. So basically when you are using a if condition, right, you can have as many as nested if conditions, or you can combine different conditions to make your if logic as complicated as you want, or you can make it based upon the use case you have. So in real life there will be no simple conditional logics. You probably will be combining 4 or 5 different conditions, and then you evaluate whether this block of the code will execute or not. Okay, now before that, if you want to see how this actually works, I'm gonna put a debugger, and I'm gonna talk about how you can put the debugger. So most of the IDEs has this feature where you can debug the code, how it is working. All right, so I'm gonna put a debugger here in IntelliJ. Okay, now see, the code is here. If I keep on moving a little bit on this one, right, so let's move here. You see this condition is true, so it comes here. Now it will pass the logic. Now if you use this one, you see this is basically false, so the debugger will not go inside this statement. It will skip that condition, right? If I go here, sorry, my bad, the condition is 80, right? So let's change it a little bit to let's say 70 for now, and let's again run our debugger. If I go here, it will be passed. Now this condition is gonna be false, right? So see, the program or the debugger did not actually execute the line 12. It completely skipped that line. Okay, now we talked about the if condition, and it's a very simple building block, but there are a few things which we should be careful while we are using the if statement. Okay, the number one is you have to make sure that you are using these braces accordingly, just to kind of keep your code clear. You have to be very clear, okay, which piece of your logic you want to run if this condition is true. If these braces are not correct or correctly added, let's say you have added some extra lines, then the problem is that code will also be executed, right? Because from the system perspective, it only run the code based upon understanding that you know what you are doing. If the condition is true, anything inside that block will run. All right, so there is another thing in Java. The braces are optional for a single line. Okay, so for example, let's change this one. Okay, so let's say if I say, if I'm only gonna print one line, which is if your marks are greater than 50, I will say you passed. Okay, and then I can say another statement. We say let's restart, for example. Okay, now if I run this program, you see it say you passed and let's restart. So I have not used the curly braces. Now if I make it as 40, only this line is running, but this line is not running. So in Java, if you are using a if condition and if you have not added any curly braces, so the first line after the if condition is treated as the block, the execution block, right? Remember one thing, only the first line is treated as that part of that block. If you have other line, for example, in my case, I have another line, this is not treated as part of the if logic. Okay, so you have to be careful in those one. If you are omitting your braces, only the first line will be treated as a conditional logic block within that one. Okay, just to summarize now, the if statement is, in my opinion, is the simplest way to add a decision making to your program. Right? It runs that block of the code only if a specific condition is true, correct? And then if the condition is not true, it basically gonna skip the entire logic. So based upon your use cases, your logic, you can build different sort of a condition logic using this if condition. Okay, so if you found this helpful, please don't forget to like, subscribe and share. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop the comment and I will be more than happy to answer your questions. Till then, Happy learning. See you into the next video. Until then, keep coding. Thank you.